Today we're going to talk about some of the things we've already covered, like energy and transmuting energy, and how energy is always constantly in alchemy or changing from one thing into another without bias. It has no judgment, no thought. It just does as it is told. Also, a little more coverage on the subconscious mind and how it is programmed through our thoughts and goes in and gets embedded into the subconscious. Then again, it has no thought, no judgment. It doesn't see in terms of this is good, this is bad, this is pleasant, this is uncomfortable. What it looks at the same as energy is the instructions. What it's told, it will do. Subconscious, if you look into something and it may be something that you're doing a research project on, that you're trying to, I don't know, maybe look for the enemy under every rock. It could be anything. The subconscious doesn't know that. The subconscious is not making a judgment. The subconscious is saying, hey, they're interested. Okay, let's make that happen. And therefore we have an experience. Another thing we're going to talk about and touch on today is spiritual blindness. What does that look like? What are some of the signs that we could possibly be dealing with spiritual blindness? Remember that when Jesus himself was there in their midst, they were blinded and could not see him. They didn't recognize the work of God right in front of them. And to think that we are above that would be just silly. We really need to introspect, judging over ourselves, discerning what is going on around us, and moving with the mighty move that is transpiring here and now. If you've been following my channel for any length of time, some of the first things that I like to bring up, and I bring it up often, is there's a few things that we need to understand about self in order to make this journey, or to have the self-awareness and the consciousness expansion that we're all looking for. The first one is we must learn how to love and accept ourselves. If we do not love ourselves completely, all aspects, whether we're judging it good or bad, reconciling it back onto unconditional love, we cannot possibly be capable of loving another. We cannot love our brothers and sisters in the way that they deserve to be loved. So number one is making sure that we figure out what it is that is within us that could be hindering us or keeping us from loving self. Things happen in life. Lots of things happen in life. A lot of it has to do with, a lot of the outcomes from what happens in life have to do with how we react to the situation that we are facing. Do we blame others? Do we introspect? Or do we even blame ourselves for things that are out of our control? These are things that we need to contemplate and introspect and let go of. The second thing that I bring up quite often is forgiveness. Forgiving ourselves for anything that we think that we did or may have done to anybody else in our past. If they're still accessible to us and we feel like we've wronged them in some way, reaching out and apologizing and reconciling is always great. But if that's not possible, it's okay. Forgive yourself. And just like with learning to love ourselves unconditionally, when we learn to forgive ourselves, the next obvious natural thing that will come from that is forgiving everybody else. The third thing that I like to talk about is to learn how to control our power. where we put our focus. What are we thinking about? Because remember, as I talked to you just a little few seconds ago about energy and the subconscious, neither of which they don't have any concept of what we would put judgments on, whether we would say it's good or it's bad, if it's polarizing, positive, or negative. So they come in as a complete neutral, unbiased, only with unconditional love to serve. That is the whole intention behind energy, which transmutes based on the intentions, the sound of our voice, and how it is sent out. Energy can, again, not be destroyed or created. It just is. And it goes, completes the task, and then is then transformed, and then becomes another form, and keeps going and going and going. Same with our subconscious mind. And when we are focusing in or paying attention to certain things, maybe it's the news at night, and it's always something bad or something that's pulling at your heartstrings, but it's got your attention. Well, the subconscious does not gauge whether or not that's a good thing or a bad thing. It sees that it's something you're paying attention to. Paying attention is paying your power over, like we discussed in this previous videos. When you pay your power over to it, your subconscious is saying, oh, that is something they would like to experience, and programs it in. Remember that the conscious mind is between 5 and 10% of our mind, a very narrow scope of observation. And the dunamis power is in our subconscious. That's why I think it's so very, very important to have that born from above, or the third eye opening, the reconnection going on to help reprogram anything that may have been programmed in there from a higher perspective. Okay, now let us take a look at this article about spiritual illness and spiritual well-being. Many illnesses have their roots in our spiritual well-being. A spiritual illness affects us physically, but to cure it, we may need to work on our spiritual health. From a spiritual point of view, illness comes from an imbalance in our lives. It can often be a result of unhealthy beliefs that we have picked up about the world, ourselves, and other people. However, for true healing to occur, we cannot simply suppress the symptoms of illness with medication. Instead, we must look for the root cause of our spiritual illness. We should, of course, seek medical attention for any illness that threatens our immediate health. However, many illnesses are spiritual in nature and can be solved by deep emotional and spiritual work. We've got the 10 following signs that can point out if we are having spiritual illness. Number 1 is fear and anxiety. Fear and anxiety are common signs of spiritual illness. If we would not feel fear and anxiety, if we were in harmony with the world around us and had faith in the universe, instead we would feel secure and trusting. If we suffer from fear and anxiety, it is a sign that we need to work on our beliefs. We can easily pick up unhealthy beliefs such as that the world is a dangerous place or people cannot be trusted. These beliefs can have a negative effect on our lives. Examining our beliefs and creating new ones, more healthy ones, can lead us back to spiritual health. Number 2, resentment, anger, and blame. If we blame others for the circumstances in our life, we give away our power to make changes. If you experience a lot of resentment and anger, this indicates a spiritual illness. We cannot take action to become whole if we refuse to accept responsibility for the state of our lives. Of course, if we've experienced negative things, we are not always to blame. However, we always have a choice in how we respond. Responding with resentment, anger, and blame will not lead us to spiritual and emotional health. Number 3 is guilt, shame, and remorse. We may feel remorse and guilt for actions that have harmed others. However, we need to forgive ourselves for these mistakes and ask for forgiveness from others where appropriate. We have done all we can to rectify the mistakes, we should let them go. We are not perfect and should not expect ourselves to go through life without ever making mistakes. Shame and guilt can also come in the form of from our upbringing and social environment. When we experience shame about our bodies, our behavior, and our beliefs, it can damage us emotionally and spiritually. If others have used shame to control you in some way, we need to let go of these feelings in order to thrive. Self-acceptance is an essential part of spiritual well-being. Number 4, irritability and chronic negativity. If you feel constantly negative, this is a sure sign of spiritual illness. Often our negativity comes from a lack of personal power. Living a joyful and meaningful life seems impossible given our current circumstances. Well, we want to make sure that we make the changes. They seem beyond our reach. Often, this state of negativity is made worse by the pressures of society, such as the need to earn money, constant exposure to negative news stories, and irrational fears of not being acceptable to others. Avoiding sources of negativity can be the first step in coming back to health. We can also try to switch our thoughts into more positive directions by being grateful for all that we do have. Number 5 is addictive behaviors. All addictive behaviors have their roots in our emotional and spiritual well-being. Addictions can be used to mask our feelings and distract us from pain. Ultimately, the only way to overcome addictions is to look into the root causes and confront the issues we are trying to mask. Number 6 is apathy and listlessness. Spiritual sickness often manifests in apathy towards life. A sense of constant fatigue, lack of energy, and enthusiasm can lead us to feeling that everything is pointless. It can be very difficult to overcome these feelings as we lack the energy to make changes. In addition, if we try to change and fail, we even feel more hopeless. The solution to this sickness can come from making very small, consistent changes. These actions will boost our sense of control in our lives. A tiny new habit like drinking more water, taking a walk, or meditating for 5 minutes can help us get out of this downward spiral. Number 7 is physical symptoms. Spiritual sickness can often manifest as a physical symptom such as headaches, stomach upsets, muscle tension, and fatigue. If you suffer persistent physical symptoms, it is important to seek medical help. However, becoming more aware of your physical and emotional needs, as well as your spiritual needs, can improve the situation dramatically. Listen to your thoughts, emotions, and your body and be guided by what you discover. Rest when you are tired, eat when you are hungry, practice good self-care, and be more aware of how your thoughts affect you in a physical way. Number 8, emotional remoteness. Spiritual illness can often make it difficult for us to form healthy emotional attachments. If we can't love and accept ourselves, we find it impossible to believe that others can love and accept us. We can end up putting on a mask to face the world and never open up to others. Learning to accept ourselves is not always easy, but focusing on our good points and achievements can help us to be more accepting of our true selves. Number 9, melancholy and lack of joy. Depression has reached epic proportions in Western society. There are many different reasons for this. However, spiritual illness is a significant factor. When economic, political, or social circumstances force us to live a life that is not meaningful for us, we easily fall into melancholy. Even finding a few moments every day to do something that brings you joy can help bring the journey towards spiritual health. Number 10, soul loss. In many cultures, sickness is understood as a sign of soul loss. Soul loss can occur through a traumatic experience such as loss, abuse, or war. However, soul loss can also be a result of a lack of self-acceptance and feelings of shame and worthlessness. We often try to hide the parts of ourselves that are not considered acceptable by our family or culture. This results in a splitting of self. To come back to wholeness, we need to learn to accept all parts of ourselves and give ourselves unconditional love. This doesn't mean you don't worry or don't try to become better people, but this must come from a place of love rather than shame or fear. Being raised Christian, I was brought up to believe that everything was finished at the cross of Christ. It was complete. Everybody had been washed clean by what he had done. Well, I have had to go through what I would call a spiritual death, and then to judgment. Believe it or not, if we read the Bible for what it truly states and what Christ, whom we follow as Christians, stated, it is stated very clearly that he said to pick up your cross and follow him. What does that mean exactly? Are we misinterpreting that? Now let's get into spiritual death. What does spiritual death actually mean? Is it necessarily a bad thing? Or is it actually on our way to freedom? First, I want to pull up several scriptures that I pulled out of the Bible Hub that state very clearly what Jesus said for us to do. Then we're going to go to Bible Hub itself, and we're going to start looking at some etymology of some of the other words about what it means to be born again. Just some fundamental understandings, because like I said, it doesn't matter that I had Christian upbringing. The same book that I got entangled with was the same book that set me free. The answers are in there if we will read it with our spiritual eyes and discern what it is we're truly reading. And I'm not going to sugarcoat it. Spiritual death is not exactly a fun thing to go through. It's messy, it's confusing, and when you don't have anybody that really knows what's going on, you fall all over yourself trying to figure out what the heck is going on. But here today in these times, there are so many people that have been through it, and they're here to help. They can assist you and help you to come up out of that tomb. Take those grave clothes off. It's all going to be based on you, what it is that you've got going on within you when you actually raise up. But we can sure throw you a rope instead of you tossing to and fro and getting yourself confused. So anyways, let's check out these scriptures that I put together for us to look at about following him to the cross. And when he says follow him, he says pick up your cross and follow me. So do we listen to what he said in the Bible, or do we stop at the cross and say, it's done? He's did everything for us. We can do whatever we want because we're good. Well, if you fell under law or fell under any type of religion, what I found is I had to pick up my cross and follow him. So let's look at these right now. What do you think that Jesus meant when he said to pick up your cross and follow him? He was already carrying his own cross, so why would we pick up a cross and follow him? What does he mean by that? Let's look at some scriptures and find out a little more details on this information. You know, all of this is important because many of us, even myself, when I was raised with the Christian, the doctrines and the theology that they had made from the Bible, we stood at the cross. We just stood there saying it's a finished work. It is finished. It is done. We're saved by grace. and that there was nothing else to it. We could do whatever we wanted. We just there was no consequence because Jesus paid the price for it all at the cross. So let's find out if that is actually the truth, or what does the Bible say about this. So we're going to start with Matthew chapter 10, verses 38 and 39. And anyone who does not take up his cross and follow me is not worthy of me. 39. Whosoever finds his life will lose it, and whosoever loses his life for my sake will find it. Matthew chapter 16, verses 23 through 25. 23. But Jesus said to Peter, "Get behind me, Satan. You are a stumbling block to me, for you do not have in mind the things of God, but the things of men." 24. Then Jesus told his disciples, "If anyone come after me, he must deny himself." Get that going. He must deny himself and come after me. So, and pick up his cross and follow me. 25. For whosoever wants to save his life will lose it, and whosoever will lose his life for my sake will find it. Okay, Mark chapter 8, verse 33 through 35. 33. But Jesus, turning and looking at his disciples, rebuked Peter and said, "Get behind me, Satan, for you do not have in mind the things of God, but the things of men." 34. Then Jesus called the crowd to him along with his disciples and told them, "If anyone wants to come after me, he must deny himself and take up his cross and follow me." 35. For whosoever wants to save his life will lose it, but whosoever loses his life for my sake and for the gospel will save it. Luke chapter 9, verses 22 through 24. 22. The Son of Man must suffer many things, he said. He must be rejected by the elders, the chief priests, and scribes. He must be killed, and on the third day raised to life. 23. And Jesus said to all of them, "If anyone wants to come after me, he must deny himself and take up his cross daily and follow me." 24. For whosoever wants to save his life will lose it, but whosoever loses his life for my sake will save it. Luke chapter 14, verses 26 through 28. 26. If anyone comes to me and does not hate his father and mother and wife and children and brothers and sisters, yes, even his own life, he cannot be my disciple. 27. And whosoever does not carry his cross and follow me cannot be my disciple. 28. Which of you wishing to build a tower does not first sit down and count the cost to see if he has the resources to complete it? So there's a lot of meat and potatoes in there, you guys. You know, if you're raised Christian, we can't just stand at the foot of the cross, you guys. Time to get to work. Let's talk a little more about the born again experience. The baptism that is done without human hands, the born from above experience, it is spoken about by Christ himself and then also the apostles. The Holy Spirit fell on many of them that heard the gospel, and obviously it's an important part of our walk. So let's start with 1 Peter chapter 1, verses 22 through 24. 22. Since you have purified your souls by obedience to the truth, so that you have a genuine love for your brothers, love one another deeply from a pure heart. 23. For you have been born again, not of perishable seed, but of imperishable, through the living and enduring word of God. 24. For all flesh is like grass, and all its glory is like the flowers in the field. The grass withers and the flowers fail and fall. Okay, now we're looking at John chapter 3, verses 2 through 4. 2. He came to Jesus in the night and said, Rabbi, we know that you are a teacher who has come from God, for no one could perform the signs you are doing if God were not with him. 3. Jesus replied, Verily, verily, I say unto you, no one can see the kingdom of God unless he be born again. 4. How can a man be born when he is old? Nicodemus asked. Can he enter his mother's womb a second time to be born? John chapter 3, verses 6 through 8. 6. Flesh is flesh. Flesh is born of flesh, but spirit is born of spirit. 7. Do not be amazed that I said you must be born again. 8. The wind blows where it wishes. You hear the sound, but you do not know where it comes from or where it's going. So it is with everyone who's born of spirit. 1 Peter chapter 1, verses 2 through 4. According to the foreknowledge of God the Father, and sanctified by the Spirit for obedience to Jesus Christ, and sprinkling by his blood, grace and peace be with yours in abundance. 3. Blessed be the God and Father of our Lord Jesus Christ. By his great mercy, he has given us a new birth into living hope through the resurrection of Jesus Christ from the dead. 4. And into an inheritance of imperishable, undefiled, unfading, reserved in the heavens for you. The born from above experience. Let's reiterate a little more on that topic. John chapter 3, verses 30 through 32. 30. This is John the Baptist they're talking about here. He must increase, I must decrease. 31. The one who comes from above is above all. The one who comes from the earth belongs to the earth and speaks as if from the earth. The one who comes from heaven is above all. 32. He testifies to what he has seen and heard, yet nobody accepts his testimony. Okay, and John chapter 17, verses 13 through 15. 13. But now I am coming to you, and I am saying these things while I am in the world, so that they may have my joy fulfilled within them. 14. I have given them your word, and the world has hated them, for they are not of the world, just as I am not of the world. 15. I'm not asking that you take them out of the world, but that you just keep them from the evil one. Do you ever wonder why you feel like you just don't fit in anymore? Well, let's look at these couple verses. John chapter 15, verses 18 through 20. 18. If the world hates you, understand it hated me first. 19. If you were of the world would love you as its own. Instead, the world hates you because you are not of the world. I have chosen you out of the world. 20. Remember the word that I spoke unto you. No servant is greater than his master. If they persecuted me, they will persecute you as well. I've kept my word. They will keep yours as well. If they kept my word, they will keep yours as well. I know this one seems a little long, but everything that we're covering here is so important that we understand from, either looking at the article, the scriptures, or, wherever we're able to glean and grow. But right now, I really want to talk a little bit more about what is called spiritual death. it is appointed unto man to die once, and then unto judgment. Okay, so when we hear people talk about the dark night of the soul, or being Jesus Christ himself being in the tomb for 3 days, and 3 days of darkness and things of that nature, I want you to understand something. What happens, it's a process. We pretty much are dying to self, the ego, everything. It seems like everything kind of gets distilled up and out as we get cleaned out. It is a process, but since there's been people that have went through and kind of trudged through the path, hopefully it can make it easier on some to be able to come up out of the tomb quicker by not making, some of the same mistakes that some of us made during our process, because we didn't have other people talking about such things as this. But just as Christ said, you pick up your cross and you follow him. You do, and you are on that cross. And so many right now are standing at the foot of the cross. They're just standing there. They're waiting. And that is not a good place to be. That's not anywhere near where we want to be. We want to be doing what he said. If we truly believe in what the finished work is, what he showed us, what he taught, then we should be following that. And by following it, that means you do what is said, especially if we ended up getting tangled up into some kind of a religious system. Now, I don't know what it's like for somebody that did not get entwined in such things. I do not. And I'm not even going to try to speak from that kind of a perspective, because I have no observation of it. I only have observation of what I went through. And I went through what I would call my death. I got the born from above experience. Activations went off the charts. Activations actually started 23, almost 24 years ago. So I know that when we get water baptized, it's kind of like being baptized into the death. But really, that baptism is done by human hands. It's done on an earthly level. It's done on the carnal, physical. What we are seeking, what we are after, is something that is not made with human hands. We're looking for something higher, something from the above, something that is not done with human hands. And do not stop until you get it. But what happens is you go into your death, and things are rooted up out of you that you think is you, but really it is not you. It's not your true identity. It's just layers and layers and layers of identity crisis, that needs to come up and out for the truth to take root. It is not an easy process. I'm not going to kid you. I fell all over the place. But some of the places I fell, I can help others hopefully avoid. Because a huge part of this is the being resurrected, coming back up out of the grave in your full power with all our activations going, connected, fully having access, because it's available for everybody. There is no certain specific group set aside that this is only for you and not for you. This is an everybody thing. And the Bible even talks about that. I'm not going to pull that scripture up, but it talks about in the latter days, God will pour out his spirit on all flesh. The spirit, it could be what we are calling the energy that is coming in and hitting us in waves that's just activating us off the charts. We do see things in different realms from different observations, and we give testimony. And if you're of the earth, just like what the scripture said, it made total sense. If you are of the earth and this is what you know, and this is you're immovable, you're still earth. The things that we talk about are not going to make sense. They are going to be like, oh my gosh, and you'll persecute people. You will chasten them. You will call them out of their name and say things about them that it's false, because you don't understand. It's just truly out of blindness. It really is. So please look at that article and listen closely to that article, and hopefully that can help with that too. But if you are in your spiritual death, be of good cheer. You do not stay in that situation. You get pulled up and out. You will have your full reveal. It just takes time. Be kind to yourself. Be patient. It's not a race. It really is not a race. It's not a competition. And when you come up out, all of those thoughts of competing with your brothers and sisters, the renewing of the heart, the renewing of the mind, the new circumcised heart, every promise, it's there. It's right there. So, although it is a hard walk, it is definitely worth it. So, if you are in your spiritual death at this time, and you're getting tossed to and fro, you're confused, you're asking a lot of questions, because that's usually, how you can kind of tell. Everything seems inverted, upside down, backwards. You kind of feel, like an outcast. You're seeing things that you've never seen before. You're being exposed to things that, you've had no concept of before. Besides my NDE, I had never seen such phenomenal things as this uptick in the past 10, 15 years. It's like, what? Anyways, there are people that have went ahead, and so we are around and we will help, but you have to ask. You have to understand, when we come up and we're back out, we have so much respect for your sovereignty, your power, your authority, and your rights to be and have your experience for your expansion. We don't have the right to trodden each other down. That's breaking spiritual law, and that's the last thing anybody that has went through the death process and come up will ever want to do to another brother or sister. I'm going to be the last one to sit here and tell you what to do. It's all about leadership. It's all about taking responsibility, learning how to love yourself unconditionally so you can love another. Just like I said in the beginning. And also learning how to forgive yourself. And once you're able to forgive yourself, anything that happened in the past with you, with anybody else, melts away. Because the concept of what really went on in all of those situations comes in with a bright beaming light. There's no denying anymore. It's no longer that you believe in something. It's a knowing. You come out knowing something. You also have access to things that's it's profound, it's beautiful, it's limitless, and so are you. It's all in a matter of making your sovereign free will choice. I'm not going to sugarcoat it though. I had a little bit of a rough time, but I do think that some people have trudged down the path and made it a little bit more worn down to help others to be able to move through it with more grace and efficiency and not get stuck in the ruts that we once did. So your spiritual death, you may feel lethargic, depressed, confused, anxious, not understanding what's going on, asking a whole bunch of questions because what you were interested in or everything that you thought you were interested in or planning on and your life goals and retirement and vacations and all of that stuff seems to kind of paradigm shift on you. The things that you once thought were important, things and cars and houses and all of those things kind of fall to the wayside. Anything of this world basically kind of just goes, of course, we all still need money and stuff. We've got to buy groceries. We've got to take care of ourselves. And, helping each other out is what we should be doing. But I have noticed that since I've come out of this, I just feel like I don't fit a lot of places. I just don't fit. And I do feel, like a kind of just floating around here, but I am trying to do the best thing that I think that I could do, something that I wish that I could have come across not somebody to try to take me by the hand and lead me and have me follow, but somebody that would stand beside me and help walk me through, because you are a leader. You are so much more than, and you'll know. And you'll know when you pop up and you pop out and the grave clothes are off, and you've folded up that face cloth and set it down, on the sepulcher where you were laying, and walked out of the tomb. You will know. There's no mistaking it. There's absolutely none. There's really no mistaking getting baptized from above into death, because you're going through judgment. And you'll know you're going through judgment because you'll be like, what's going on? This is weird. You've peeked your head into the etheric realm and you're not quite comprehending what you're seeing. But that's okay, because you will. We have help. We always have help. All we have to do is ask for it and know how to ask for it. That's another thing I did not know. So remember your sovereignty, and remember that there's a non-interference clause. Any angelic or alien, they call them different things nowadays. It doesn't matter what the terminology is. From a seventh density and up, has such a pureness about them that they follow spiritual law. They're so transparent, and they will not encroach on your sovereignty. You have to ask. You have to ask, and your heart has to be really desiring that help in order for them to come in and help you. You can't hoodwink them. They know. They can see right through you, just like from the realm they are from, or whatever the level of angelic being that they are. They can see right through each other, and the higher that you go, the more into the ranks of the angels, the more and more translucent, the more gentler, and the more that they look through the filter of love and will appreciate and will not want to trodden down any experience that we're trying to have. Well, I hope that this is beneficial to you and that it helps you to keep pursuing and to keep going after all that you deserve. You're amazing, you're wonderful, and always share what you know and listen so we can grow. I'll talk to you guys soon. Peace.